Question number 4. The following text is adapted from James Baldwin's 1956 novel Giovanni's Room. The narrator is riding in a taxi down a street lined with food vendors and shoppers in Paris, France. The multitude of Paris seems to be dressed in blue every day, but Sunday, when for the most part they put on an unbelievably festive black. Here they were now, in blue, disputing every inch our passage with their wagons, hand trucks, their bursting baskets carried at an angle steeply self-confident on the back. As used in the text, what does the word disputing most nearly mean? Is it A. arguing about, B. disapproving of, C. asserting possession of, D. providing resistance to? So if you said D, well done. That is the correct answer. So D is the best answer. Why? Because as used in the text, disputing most nearly means providing resistance to. What's happening is that the narrator is riding in a taxi down a street lined with food vendors and shoppers in Paris. And when they are passing by, so the narrator is saying that they were now in blue disputing every inch our passage with their wagons. So that means they are providing resistance to. The narrator is in a taxi as it drives down a street lined with so many food vendors and shoppers that the narrator describes them as the multitude of Paris, which also means that an immense group of people, a lot of people. The street is essentially a large open air market, and there are so many people pushing small wagons of goods, carrying shopping baskets, that every inch of the taxi's progress is impeded. So the taxi is not able to move. In other words, the people are providing resistance to the taxi's attempt to drive down the street. Now, why is A not correct? Arguing about. So disputing, of course, disputing in some context does mean arguing. The narrator doesn't portray the shoppers and vendors as arguing with the driver of the taxi or indeed arguing at all. So there's no mention of them actually arguing or disputing with them actually. Okay, so we cannot say A. And why is B incorrect? B is incorrect because in some context disputing does mean disapproval. So disputing does mean disapproval, but in this context the narrator doesn't suggest that the shoppers and vendors unnecessarily disapprove of the taxi's attempt to drive down the street. So they are not disputing or stopping the taxi from going. Instead, their combined presence along with the street has an effect of impeding the taxi's progress, because there's so much crowd over there, the taxi is not able to move. And why C is not correct? C is incorrect because, as the narrator explains, both the multitude of people and the taxi are using a public space, that is nothing but a street, at the same time. So the narrator doesn't go so far as to suggest that the people feel that they and not the taxi possess the exclusive access to the street. So nothing is suggesting that they are asserting possession or they think that it belongs to them. So not to that level, they are only providing resistance because there is so much of a crowd. So D is the best answer over here.